What's up, War Room? Welcome back. If you are watching this, hopefully you've already listened to Connor and I go for an hour and 20 minutes in yesterday's podcast. Uh, I had to call Will in here because we couldn't break the War Room streak. Connor, I believe, has his fantasy draft tonight, and after the hour and 20 minutes, I was like, I gotta go hydrate. I'm gonna text Will and we're gonna see if we can get him in here, and we're just gonna give some additive thoughts on the current state of the roster. We're going to answer a few of the Discord questions that broke through and bat around any little nuggets, thoughts, or things we think could happen the next 4 or 5 days. Will, an eventful day in waiting till like 5:17 Eastern Standard Time to get this roster, because why would this ever, be easy? But I think my initial take was no surprises and not in a bad way. But how are you feeling about today?
Yeah, I didn't feel like the only surprises, and me and Connor mentioned this a little bit on Saturday night, which as a psychotic thing, me and Connor at 10:30 at night, if similar to what you guys do, or recording a podcast for 35 minutes on a preseason game, which involved 5 guys that made the roster. There was just a question marks for me of how many of the UDFAs make it. I thought McGregor and Taylor would be locks based on kind of some of the nuggets, I guess, I had heard on Monday. And then it was a matter of Watts and Tack. Was there some potential roster gymnastics there? Both guys had earned spots on the roster, it felt like. But with Fotu, obviously, I wasn't sure of the injury there. He'd been out a little bit, so I guess it was one I kind of should have picked up on. Yeboah, Irv Charles, JBC, and Isaiah Oliver and Newman were all guys that were like, hey, we've seen this in the past. The Jets do this thing, and a lot of teams do. It's not just the Jets. It's smart business. This guy is a fringe roster guy that we know is going to get claimed elsewhere. And he's probably out like 2 weeks, not 4. But is it better to just keep him on IR and at least go through a month keeping this other guy? Because once you get into the season, there's a lot of like, you ride with who you ride with and you're picking parts up if something crazy happens. So I think of the prediction, I think I got 51 of the 53 right. And the only ones I didn't get right, not bad. The only ones I didn't get right were the 2 guys who were still made the team, so I would have been 53, but unfortunately they're on IR. I'm really happy. I think to give the Jets credit here, I think we try to be really positive and try, and when negative when it's needed. Look, at the end of the day, like the Jets found 3 UDFAs at premium positions to make the roster in a talented competitive group. Yes, was it aided by Hassan Reddick not practicing all summer? Sure. Was it aided by Michael Clemens not solidifying his spot and maybe the Jets saying, hey, we're going to hold on to Clemens because he's a draft pick and whatever, but like there might be more potential here or whatever it may be. Maybe it's a Fotu injury to push somebody else on the roster. All that said, like credit to the scouting staff, credit to the front office, and credit to this coaching staff who, yes, offensively, we have all of our concerns and our questions. But defensively, specifically D-line, linebacker, corners, and safeties, so pretty much everybody, the group's really damn good and the coaching staff's really damn good. And like, again, you and Connor hit on Eric Watts like literally 4 or 5 months ago. Like I've been talking about Braden McGregor since January. You guys have been talking about, Leonard Taylor right away. And all those guys not only produced during practice, but produced, during the games. And it's cool. And again, I know the tax story is really interesting and cool. And I think there'll be more time to talk about that. I just think it's pretty unprecedented the way the Jets have, if you're a UDFA, like you have a legit chance with the Jets, which I don't think you can say for every franchise. In the last couple of years, maybe the last 4 years, that's been a Tony Adams, Bryce Huff. JFM was a waiver wire guy. Quincy Williams, waiver wire guy. Jason Brownlee, Xavier Gibson obviously contributed to points last year. Again, will be on the team this year. Like it's a pretty nice pipeline where they don't hit on a day 3 picks. We know that, as evidenced by Jalen Key, Zach Kuntz, others getting cut. But UDFAs, the Jets are still in their McCagnon.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, that's their sweet spot. That's that McCagnon sweet spot. They have never failed since then.
Yeah, the defensive line story is really nice, and I'm curious to see what they do with Reddick. Obviously, carrying 10's a lot. Are they going to carry 11? Probably not, but we don't have to worry about that now. I wasn't overly optimistic in our last pod about Reddick being here before week 1. We'll see. It's not totally dead yet that he plays week 1. We'll know by this weekend-ish. Frustrating, but those guys are exciting. And look, this does feel like a roster that we'll have to make a couple more moves. Maybe a half too strong. I just think I could see a tight end being added here versus carrying just two, especially Ruckert coming off a banged up summer. The receiver situation with 7, it's not going to be an immediate veteran, but is there going to be the deadline move, and how does that shuffle around what they have? Beyond that, there just wasn't a ton of surprises. I also wonder if and when Reddick joins, if maybe they knock off one of the extra middle linebackers, because do you really need 5? I thought of that as more of Yabo is hurt and Barnes or Surratt could take some of those special teams reps. And when he gets back, maybe that shuffles around. But kind of chalk. And now it gets into, okay, let's see a couple minor waiver wire moves, but then for week 1, is Reddick playing, and how much is Mike Williams playing? Those are the 2 big questions on the Jets side. And on the Niners side, it's all eyes on Williams and Ayuk. To a lesser extent, McCaffrey. I feel like McCaffrey's going to play and be fine. He's just that guy. The Williams-Ayuk stuff is more interesting. Connor and I batted this around. I said I think Williams is going to play between 30 and 40 snaps. He said more of like 18 to 25. Not a huge variance there. Both of us think he's going to play and start. What is the general feeling in the building about where he's at right now?
Yeah, a couple different things you mentioned there. I just want to quickly hit on. You mentioned what they would potentially do. They have the 10th waiver wire, spot. Again, just for clarity, if you claim someone on waivers, you are claiming their contract. It's very much like every other sport. So just something to be aware of. And now, again, the Jets do have cap space. They have a lot more cap space, it looks like, than they actually do because of, Reddick not counting against the cap until he reports. It seems like Zach's hinted at this. A few of the Jets beat writers have hinted at this, and it does make sense. Tight end could be a potential spot. They look to potentially claim someone or sign another body. So just at name there, they have 7 receivers, only 2 tight ends, 4 running backs. Kind of feels a little bit, lopsided in that sense. I had them keeping 5 linebackers and 10 D linemen. Right now, it's obviously 11 and 5.
Yeah.
My best guess is Reddick reports and they sneak Watts back to the practice squad with intent for him to potentially play this year. He obviously did enough again to make the roster. I just felt like he was probably the guy that was the one semi surprise. In terms of, the Niners side of things, I think that they're just in a really weird spot. They're $35 million over the cap. And again, that doesn't really totally matter. I know it matters, but they could get a loan for their credit card debt, essentially. I feel like both guys are pretty damn dug in, and the Niners have done this in the past. John Lynch is a contract terrorist when it comes to August 27th to September 10th, that range. Like Nick Bosa was week of the opener. So both guys will probably play, but if you told me Trent Williams pulled a Chris Jones from last year, I also wouldn't be entirely shocked, just because this is the last time he's getting paid. He's 30, I think he's 36 years old or about to be 36. And he wants to, from all reports, get quote unquote paid, not just a little bit of a bump like Tunsil got last year. So I think they'll all play, but what kind of shape they're in. Trent Williams, I guess, could walk off the street in 10 years and still play left tackle. That's fine. But the Ayuk thing is a little weird just because Brock Purdy has not looked quite as good without, Trent and all those guys. It's preseason, whatever. The Mike Williams side, it seems like from all, kind of accounts, he's either at or ahead of schedule. He's going to have 2 full weeks, although this week doesn't really matter that much. They practice today, and then I think they practice 1, if not 2 more times, and then they're on this mini break. So Williams at least is in team drills. Today he was in team drills. He'll be in there the rest of the week. I'm not so concerned about him getting into team drills today. I'm interested to see how he responds. Obviously, the more work you put on that surgically repaired knee, how does his body kind of respond? It was the same way with Rodgers and all these different guys working their way back. Again, I expect, similar to you guys, that 18 to 25 snap range. I think they'll be very smart about third downs, red zone stuff, trying to utilize him there. And they're going to have to lean on Alan Lazard. They are. They're going to have to lean on Xavier Gibson, who Rodgers, came out with the Giants. He's going to have some good chemistry with him, which is cool. They're going to have to lean on Tyler Conklin too. There were some plays during camp I saw Conklin lined up outside, as more of an X in certain formations. So that's some stuff to watch there. And then Reddick, you mentioned, as I ramble here, I still think Reddick's playing week 1. I think there's a lot of breadcrumbs that we'll see him next week. And also,
I like that. I like that.
yeah. And I feel like there's been some interesting, like, Reddick's got his locker in there. He's starting to post videos online again. Salo seemed like, I'm not reaching out to him, but like, hell yeah, he could play week 1. And we've got time. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay. That was
a
like
stronger
total,
statement. Yeah,
that was like kind of a total, that was a lot like from Salah this summer. That was interesting. But I think he's a guy that, like, maybe again 20 snaps, 25 snaps, maybe plays 40 in Tennessee, 50 against New England, and then like 70 and Zach Wilson 5 times. You know what I mean? Like, I think both guys will play week 1, and I think Reddick will hit a gladiator, his thumbs down celebration on Brock Purdy in like the 3rd quarter, and Jets fans will be like, "I'm buying his jersey. Oh my god!"
Yeah.
You know, like I can
see it already.
Players, and he's just gonna hit one of these, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, I've always loved Hassan Reddick. I've called it since his Temple days."
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel a little bit better about kind of the general sentiment around Reddick, Williams, those guys right now.
I like the optimism, because I think and I admitted this in the pod, I feel like I've gotten myself too pessimistic about the situation. And I think it's just like the days and the weeks passing, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm so annoyed that this is still a thing. But, the reality is, if this dude like shows up Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, it's like, well, he's got the full week of prep. We got a Monday night game. Like, he's with the team. And yeah, guess what? If it's 3rd and 7, he's going to be out there. And Jet fans will be happy if it's out there. And this is going to roll us into, we got a couple Discord questions through. We're going to knock out these few. And the first one is about this. So from Revo, man, what is the percent odds that Q, WMD, TSA, which is tax sack attack now. I like tax to now, but we can mix it all together. It's all good. And friends have 5+ sacks against the Trentless Niners. Jets win by double digits, and we all get ready to say bye to Hassan, even though we all still want him here. And then the question, which this is an interesting point out from Brit Jet. How does it work carrying only 2 QBs on the active 53-man roster? If both get hurt, someone is designated as an emergency QB from another position group. To the first one, if Reddick does not suit up for that game and the Jets win like that, obviously it puts a lot more leverage, even if it shouldn't, because it's one game and there's not Trent Williams back in the Jets, ballpark. But you're getting Reddick for the stretch run and winning the AFC, so we should still want him, even if all those dudes have a great week 1, which they very well could, because Quinn's really good, and WMD teed up right, but from Jermaine, could be good, and we're still going to want him and feel very relieved when he's on the roster. And even if he doesn't play week 1 and pulls a Chris Jones and plays week 2, he'll be happy to have him out there against the Titans and Pats. So I think I say 50-50. He doesn't play week 1. I think there's but maybe now after talking to Will, 55-45 he plays. So I'm feeling a little better. And on the emergency quarterback, yeah, I was answering some questions about this over the weekend, and people were surprised. Like, I just think with this roster and how stacked up it is, and how they wanted to keep this many defensive linemen, like, it didn't surprise me they didn't burn a roster spot on Martinez and Peasley, who I am assuming both will defer and ultimately end up on the practice squad. I do believe that works, that the way it was described, where they can just designate a different player on the roster for that emergency role. Is that specifically how it works now? The rules have changed a lot. I'm not going to act like I know them inside or out, but I don't believe the Jets have to burn a spot on Martinez or Peasley. And I think they could just say, look, like, we're just going to roll with Rodgers and Tyrod. And if Rodgers gets hurt, then we could do something a little more drastic. And it's like, at that point, like, holy shit anyway. But I think for the early part of the year, they're like, you know what? Like, we're not going to cut Watts to keep a spot for Martinez or Peasley. And I think the plan all along was to redshirt Jordan Travis this year. I wasn't surprised by that at all.